You can skip a minute in. We're just going to watch the last minute currently. I'm just streaming, but I'm not recording it. So we'll just do this video. We'll just watch this last candle minute change. We can see a couple things. We just need, I mean, it's way higher than what we needed it. If we were wondering whether it was going to end and where it needed to or not, obviously it's going to, because this is how you manipulate a candle. You do it at, the start or the end. So, here's like a perfect example of, I wouldn't call this manipulation. This is more of the best way to use your capital. So, I mean, this is going to get into what we're talking about in a minute. So, let's check the daytime candle where we switch over now. It should be at 19750, just about. More importantly, we have our day candle here, and it looked like 19746 is all we needed to start at. So they pushed it more than enough. So what we can kind of see here is we can see not a trend, well, not like a not we don't really see a trend here so much as what we see is a change in trend. So most like this is going to kind of 19990. I don't see why not. 19990 seems kind of low essentially. I mean, this pretty much sets the exactly. I agree. I mean, it has to. We'll see what they're doing, but this kind of goes into what I was saying and what I expect for next week, and why I still think it may be possible if because they sold it down in because they sold Apple down, or they just sold the market down in general. We have another test, but we could have one heck of a squeeze, and that's kind of what we're going to be getting into here. And we have some key points, and we'll kind of come back to this. So this is the main thing that we wanted to see, and so a lot of stuff should start looking pretty good, much better than what we had here. We do have a really kind of convincing change in trend from what we have. And we did have a lot of extra bearishness because this was the first start under. It dropping down doesn't really matter. This pretty much solidifies in my mind that we're going to have a pretty okay weekend at least. And for alts, it should look pretty good because it's going to be fairly safe. Now, we could see a little bit of selling down, but that's not an issue. We can't see it on these ones, but on this one, this sold down before this pushed all the way up. And then obviously we saw the 2 hours for that. So we'd expect this to sell down. They did what they needed to do. I had really no doubt about this because it just didn't make any sense. To have the candle start bad, it really just makes sense. I don't know if you want to say from a market maker perspective or manipulation. I don't really care. They only needed it to get it right here. So they didn't need to even push it the rest of this. So let's just kind of get into what we're looking for since we see this on Bitcoin. And let's just get this video out because we're down 3 minutes in. So essentially what we're looking for are, well, let's do this. Let's kind of go over what happened today and kind of my concerns about why I think we're going to push up, but we could have a squeeze and we could possibly have a reversal. I still think it's probably about this point, probably about 70 to 30% likely that we go down in the end, and this is just a bull trap that's going to turn around. So one of the kind of key things that we can see here, we came all the way to the top. This is the day time frame right here. And then if we switch over, we can see the week time frame. I'm not going to go into it, but if we go on the 5-minute, look at the pre-market, we can actually see it rode right here. Once the market opened, or a little before the market opened, maybe 5 minutes before, it just dropped. So the point is we range through here, but the issue is that we've come down past this level. And so the issue with coming down past this level at 149.97 or 150 is that on this next week time frame, it's hard to put it's hard to see with all this crap, but let's do this real quick. Let's at least get rid of like group 1 and the fib. Okay, so there's a high chance, regardless of where we start, maybe we start a little bit up. I wouldn't be surprised because things look pretty nice. But the point is we're going to have this here, and it's going to open up the possibility of, I mean, we're going to open above it. Almost for sure, we're going to be opening above this, and then this is going to be used as a pretty decent base to push up. So we can at least even just see from here, it makes sense that it's going to push up to 154. We could see something up to 155.40, which is a little bit more important of an area to just test up. So we could see it kind of coming up in this area, 154, 155.40. And depending on how many people shorted, they could get wrecked out. That could go into something else. Now, I think the VIX is going to be one of the easier ways that we can kind of determine what's going to happen. So the issue with the VIX today is that it blew its load a little bit too quick. We shot up. What we were saying in the last videos is what we wanted to see is we wanted it to stay around this area. We wanted it to essentially look like a cup. We can just see ourselves laddering down just stay around here. And then on Friday, we can maybe take a position here, somewhere in this area, come down. We're above the weeks. This would be the first week that we actually start above the week time frames, relatively close to it. We start way too up, hit the day time frames, come back down. We start in between, so no super strong support to necessarily push us past, run into the same issue. Boom, this is the first week, this is the second week. And then so we can see that we're striking on a third time. So I think I believe the VIX is going to be a pretty easy determinant, combined with all these other things. I think it's going to be a fairly nice determinant of the direction that we're going to be taking next week, and maybe if we push up or we push down. So there's kind of three areas to keep it simple. If we can start in this area, I think it still does look more bullish because this will be a nice start. In a sense, even if we do push down, which I do expect that we will push down a little bit, just because we had too much of a sell down. So I think we're just gonna have to go back to test because we had too much of a sell down. So we could just come down to the week. It seems a little less likely that we'll come down through here if we do start above. The more likely scenario, in my opinion, we'll have to just see. I'm not really sure how it determines where it opens, to be honest with the VIX, but the more likely thing is that we'll start in between the weeks. I think this is pretty safe for both bears and the bulls. Worse for the bulls, better for the bears, because it gives us the chance to kind of push down. It makes it a lot weaker when we push up. So if we kind of look at this from this perspective, we could see something. We're just on this movement. This could be like a left shoulder and this could be a head, but just for what it is right now. And then if we start somewhere here, we could just treat it like here, and we could have a right shoulder that doesn't come up as far. And so this is my kind of issue. This is what I think the bulls would want in regards to the VIX. And then we could fail down. And then there's a lot bigger implications starting a week under the weeks, because the next target for the VIX under all of this with a failure, if we don't stop at around what is it, about 19 to 20, will be us going down to about 1730, and that would be a lot of stuff going up. And then I could still see stuff getting wrecked down there just because of what we have on the longer term trend for the VIX. But that's kind of something else, neither here or there for now. That's something like way later. We can see boom, boom. So, I mean, this is somewhat of a dangerous territory for it to come back down in general, even if it was to do something like that. So it's kind of like a a loss at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens. A lot of stuff's gonna have to develop, but so the VIX essentially just kind of keep it simple. I think we'll get a decent idea whether we start here, here, or here. Regardless of anything, we do have a lot above us on the VIX, even when we do start here, and that's going to be a little bit an issue. But I think with a start here, and then if we see anything that pushes up, and especially if we have something end in between the days, we should expect to start. This should be pretty standard positioning, and we should skyrocket on the VIX, and a lot of stuff should come down. So that's kind of like with the VIX there. Like I said with Apple, it's like the main term I'm using. We can see that we're still in this channel. We haven't pushed out of it. The likelihood that this starts up here and we start under it is very unlikely. So it could push down, but it's going to start in a very strong position to try to push upwards. Bitcoin should hold for what it's doing, just because we can kind of see that it's pushed down so far. We can kind of see the overall sentiment, or figure that the overall sentiment is more bullish at least than it was before. And especially with Bitcoin, that was just on the edge yesterday, as I was kind of talking about in the other videos for the market update, and then the other update that I did for that. Just be that, like I said, be careful. This isn't exactly the same as this. We have a trend that's formed here, depending on what happens with the market, and so Bitcoin's pretty much saved. So how much this will go up, who knows? This looks pretty good. I could even see it going up to 220,000 pretty easily. But the main point here is that as of now, this is the safest place to take an entry point in here. I don't really see it turning around. Maybe it does turn around. We saw the buy up right before. If this isn't convincing enough out of all this, it's at a certain point, it just becomes too coincidental. And a lot of stuff is on the edge. A lot of stuff took a lot of losses. If we want to look at this from the perspective of the market is going to go where the most pain is back up. It's most certainly back up. And if this is a really good target for it to come up to, I could definitely see that being what people want to go for. Now, because we did have this extension up here higher, and then this base here, it is going to make it a lot harder, even if we do come up during the week. And we'll see what happens with the CPR, how people want to deal with it. I don't think it's really too concerning at this point. I think we'll see. I don't think it's surprising. I don't think inflation is really too surprising to anybody. So I don't really see how like people saying like the sky's blue is going to really change anything, but it's always possible. So we'll have to see with that. But this is by far the strongest point of the weekend. I believe that anyone can enter on any of this. I mean, it's just too good. It's just too good to be true. Well, technically, the strongest point is if we went down a little bit, and I still prefer if we push down first. But even if we did push to up and we never push down, I could kind of understand it just because it looks really, really, really strong. But I'd still liked it to push down, but it's at 19,742. It's not even $100 under us. It's not even $70 under. So it's not really that far away. So we can see how this is an incredibly safe kind of position to take. If we want to look here, we could assume 19714 even without this. Even without this, it just looks strong right here. So even if we come down, this looks like a really strong area. This looks like a really strong base of just looking over here on the left. So even if we take away the hulls, it just looks like a very strong area. So I think we're going to have a really great crypto week, unlike the other. I don't remember when it was. Unlike here, I think this was the weekend. But what we needed to do here, and one of the issues we had here, is we just never came down afterwards. Once we ended over, we needed to come down to confirm. So we start so close here, we don't necessarily need to come down to confirm, even though I would like it just because it makes it look a little bit better. But we don't really need to just because we're so close to it. And it's really greedy to expect it to just because it's so relatively close. Now, I'd like to see it. But it wouldn't really change anything. I'm the last thing I'm going to say on it because it's not that important. Is I mean it's like it's not even 0.5% away, so it's incredibly close. So we can just check the Nasdaq real quick and see some of these. These look pretty good. They came away from the end of nothing, so we're back above the 4 hours now. So we're on the edge, on the cliff of everything, and we push back into it. So I definitely think that we'll at least come back to test up to some of these other 4 hours, some of these other targets that we have. And just in general, the SPY, I don't think it really matters. Apple's what I use to determine for everything. The Nasdaq, we could maybe see a little bit of strength here too. Dow Jones should be off a cliff anyway. Yeah, it's nowhere near coming back, so that's not really too important with what's going on with that. But I don't. It hasn't been really that important for anything that I've been looking at anyway. So I think that's kind of it. I really feel like it is. We'll see what happens with a lot of this stuff. Like I said before, my biggest thing is that Bitcoin is at a position where it almost fell off a cliff, and it kind of did. We just didn't have anything end on a time frame under. Like we never had a 4 hour start, or we never had a 4 hour start under. So we can just see how we were hanging off a cliff while the market was open, and then we were pretty much Gucci. So we should just push up if we're looking for some key points. What we can look for on Bitcoin, if someone didn't already get in, or someone could have got in before, it just depends. I mean, technically, none of these places are really great now that I look at it, because the only time that actually looked somewhat nice was well, there's only one chance, and that was really at 4 o'clock Eastern when the market closed, and everything looked like okay, we're going to at least have most likely some sort of bullish test back up, which could turn into something else depending on how bearish other people are. It seems like a lot of people out there can't catch this stuff. This seems to be some pretty high level things going on, maybe in a sense. So with all these reversals and things like that. And when we are in bear cycles, we have big drops, but we have big rises. So it still makes sense. We could have a bull trap that could knock us down. We're really looking for what we were saying with the VIX earlier was the start above that week, which is I think around I think it's like 2560, I believe still. So we want to see something there. So we'll kind of see with that. But to get into the specifics, looking right here, 20,196. That's where it currently is. So it's changing at a rate of about 22 every 4 hours. So we pretty much just want to see a 4 hour start above here. This should be more than enough. Even if we ignore this, just get rid of it for a second. We can just see anything starting above here is essentially starting above the bulk of a lot of this stuff. It's above the bulk of a lot of it right now. So this will be coming out down at about 22 per 4 hours. So if you don't have it up, tough luck, or you can just do the math here. You can just do the math yourself if you want. It looks like in the meantime, what we also can see is we also have another level here at the 2 hour and the 2 hour. What we can see here before, just to kind of give some references, you can see how we've been kind of trapped between the 4 hours. We haven't had a start above, nor have we had a start under. So that's the one thing to kind of note here. But we see on this first, what this was this day. So what happened is we started here, pushed up a little bit, came back down exactly on here, then we pushed up. Obviously, it failed back down. Just to show you though, and then we came up, we hit here, we came up a little bit more, touched the 2 hour, and then we reversed back down through the 4, and that's where we are now. So these are some kind of things to look for. Tough luck. If not in the stream, you're going to see it's a little bit late, but I mean, it still might not be that bad. I mean, we can still come down to test. It's just this is the best place of the weekend. So the farther away we get, the farther away we get. One other thing that's of importance, that's a little bit scary for some of the alts, we'll really have to see, but it's a little bit scary. And why I think looking for something very strong to Bitcoin is more important than looking for, if someone wants to trade an alt, is much more important than looking for something strong to the dollar. And the issue is, if we're going to get, this is the first 2 hour, this will be the 4 hour, and this will be the 2 hour. We should blow back through this. This is all free space. There's not really a lot of there's just not a lot of price action that's going on here that's going to make people say, oh, I want to sell out. Anyone that bought in down here wants it to go up. Anyone that bought in all the way down here wants it to go back up. So they're not going to sell it down. So it's nice in this perspective that we haven't had all this stuff. So these are the kind of key levels here. We can see with 19,992, 19,992.3, currently 20,206.4, and 2,564.8. So these could be our kind of bounce spots. I think it's more likely that we would do a 1-2 with a 1-2 with the 2-4, and I think there's a lot higher chance that we'll just blow through this 2 once we get some strength on this 4. That's essentially how I feel about this. But the issue here is, if this is what we're going to be striking up against, if we push up to here, and then let's say tomorrow we push up to like here, and then let's say Friday we have something bullish and we end up pushing up and just taking the free space, and now we're fighting up here. This is a little bit concerning, depending what happens for some of these alts. It could happen quicker than this. I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens. But the point is, with a Bitcoin kind of boom up, especially if we are able to get up to here, it doesn't make sense to be in an alt for most alts unless they look incredibly strong to Bitcoin, because most likely they're going to get wrecked to Bitcoin, and they'll barely hold their price, and Bitcoin will shoot the heck up. I mean, I could easily see 10, 20% pushing up from here depending what happens. But this is a big area. I think it's very likely that we'll just get wrecked down here at the end of the day. And kind of the bearish things that I expect to play out would be still around the same bullish here. It's another bull trap. So the same exact thing I was talking about being a possibility for the market or in the week is the same thing that I expect. I expect ours to push it up in the week here just because everything looks bullish. And then I expect the market to be bullish when it first opens. And then we could fall into the bear trap. And obviously both of them are going to coincide and go together. So if we are going to push up super hard, that might be something that people want to be careful about, because a hard push up in Bitcoin can, it not necessarily that it makes the altcoin bad per se. And it's nice that we're pushing down a little bit. I hope we actually push down to this target before we actually push up. That would actually be perfect. But what am I saying? So you got to be careful, because if something looks nice to USDT, if Bitcoin just shoots up, it can lose value. Your best bet is that it holds it, but it could put that pair to Bitcoin in a bad position where it gets sold down to. It could push it under resistance that already exists in the TA. It's just going to get sold down regardless of anything if Bitcoin shoots up, because that's just how it is. And then you have to be just cognizant and aware of where where like the resistance is on that alt to Bitcoin chart. Otherwise, you could get trapped and you can get wrecked a little bit that way. So um, anyway, that's kind of it. We're gonna end this on. We're just gonna stop the video right here, and I think I'm gonna stop the stream in a second after this. So I like where we're ending. I like the fact it's not pushing up. Um, I think this is actually perfect. We did the same thing over here on this day too, where we started pushing up a little bit, and then we pushed back down to it. So we could push down a little bit through this. We could push here. I mean, we could even push farther through it. It's going to be tough. We might not even hit it a lot. Like, it just looks so good. So I would like to see it come back down. I think that makes it look even better, but I don't think it needs it at all. I just really don't. So hopefully it comes back, but if it doesn't, it really doesn't. Regardless of what it does, it just looks good to go up. But I would like to see it come back. We could see it come down a little bit too, but no matter what, to me, it looks good, and I think we're going to have a great weekend. So I'll update tomorrow if things turn another way or if we see something else. But Until then, take care, guys. Have a good weekend.